All right. Welcome to Tea with Honey. It's your girl, Honey Da Vinci, and I'm back with another video. So, today I will be doing another segment of Narrated by Honey Da Vinci. So, yesterday we had a great success of me reading Will, the autobiography by Will Smith himself and Mark Manson or whatever. But yeah, I really enjoyed the first chapter, the introduction and everything. It was a good read. It has me really excited for the rest of the book. It was really hard not to just read it without going live. Like, ooh, I really struggled with not just reading it on my own time. But I'm excited to get started. Let me grab my juice, wet my whistle. And let's get started on chapter 2. Oh my gosh. All right. Chapter 2. Boom. Fantasy. So, on chapter 1, just a little recap before we get started. We learned about where Will's driving force came from. We learned about his parents. We learned about his imagination. We learned about his trauma. And we learned about basically where he started, his childhood, his position in the family, and everything. We learned that his father and him had a very conflicted relationship because, on one hand, his father was his hero, but then on the other hand, his father was abusive to his family as well as himself. And, he grew up very afraid. He grew up feeling weak, and then to topple on top of those feelings, his younger brother, the baby, was standing up to the father, and he never had the courage to do that. He was a pleaser. He knew that if his dad was upset, that he would beat the mom. And so he was big on, like, let's just keep him happy. But his sister rebelled. She became, she started drinking and staying out all late at night. Then the little brother started, talking back and being combative back. The mom always stood up for herself, even though she took the major brunt of the beatings and things like that. And Will was the funny one. He was the one who was trying to keep the peace. He really took on the mindset of he was responsible for his father's behavior. And so, he dived deep with that. Um I'm excited for this chapter, so let's get started. So again, chapter 2, fantasy. Now, I know y'all were thinking I was going to start this book off with in West Philadelphia, born and raised, not with stories of domestic abuse and violence. I was tempted. I mean, how could I not be? I'm a make believer, and not just any old make believer. I'm a legendary bad boy, man in black kind of make believer. I'm a movie star. My first impulse is always to clean up the truth in my mind, to make it better, to shine it up a little bit so it doesn't hurt as much. I redesign it and replace it with whatever suits me, or really whatever suits you. I'm a crowd pleaser. It's actually my job. The truth is whatever I decide to make you believe, and I will make you believe it. That's what I do. I'm a master storyteller. I thought about showing you the pretty me, a flawless diamond, a swaggy, unbreakable winner, a fantasy image of a successful human being. I'm always tempted to make believe. I live in an ongoing war with reality. Of course, there's the red carpet walking, fly car driving, tight fade wearing, box office record breaking, hot chick marrying, I am legend, pull up doing jiggy ass Will Smith. And then there's me. This book is about me. In West Philadelphia, born and raised, on the playground is where I spent most of my days. Chilling out, maxing, relaxing, all cool. I got my ass beat and bullied every day after school. That's how the song should have gone. Okay, I can admit, I was a weird kid. Kinda skinny, sorta goofy, with a bizarre taste in clothes. I was also the unfortunate owner of a prominent set of ears that made David Brandon once say that I looked like a trophy. As I think back, I probably would have made fun of me too. It didn't help that I liked math and science. They were my favorite subjects in school. I think I like math because it's exact. I like when things add up. Numbers don't play games or have moods or opinions. And I talked a lot, probably too much. But most important, I had a wild and vivid imagination, a fantasy life that was much broader and lasted way longer than most children. Whereas when most kids just played around with plastic army men, Nerf balls, and toy guns, I would construct elaborate fantasy scenarios and then get lost in them. When I was about 8 or 9, my mom sent me and Pam to Sarah Morris Day Camp in Southwest Philadelphia. It was the usual bargain basement thing: rec room, swimming pool, arts and crafts. I came home after the first day and ran into the kitchen, where my mom was sitting with our next door neighbor, Miss Frida. "Hey, baby, how was camp?" my mom asked. "Oh, Mom, I loved it. They had this big jazz band with trumpets and violins and singers and drums. And they had one of those horn things that do like this." I mimicked the back and forth movement of a trombone. "And then we had a dance battle, and like 50 people were doing choreographed moves together." Miss Frida looked at my mom. "A full jazz band? 50 choreographed dancers? At a children's summer camp?" Miss Frida didn't know. What Miss Frida didn't know was that she was caught in the crossfire of a playful game between my mother and me. One that still goes on even to this day. The rules are: I describe the most colorful, vivid, outlandish scene that I can come up with, which I then superimpose over the reality of my actual experience. And my mom's job is to determine how much of it is actually true. And in which case, does she need to do something? My mom paused and came nose to nose with me. Her gaze served as a sort of old school mother wit lie detector, looking for the slightest wobble in my commitment to my story. I didn't flinch. She'd seen enough. "Willard, stop playing. There was no jazz band at Sarah Day Camp." "No, Mom, I'm telling you, it was crazy." Miss Frida, confused, says, "But Carolyn, he didn't even know the word for trombone. He had to have seen it, right?" "No, he does this mess all the time." Just then, Pam walked into the kitchen, and my mother said, "Pam, was there a full jazz band, a dance contest, and a trombone at camp today?" Pam rolled her eyes. "What? No, it was a jukebox, Mom." "Will stood there and listened to the jukebox all day. He didn't even get in the pool." My mom looked at Miss Frida. "I told you." I burst into laughter. See, my mom won this round, but at least I beat Miss Frida. My imagination is my gift, and when it merges with my work ethic, I can make money rain from the heavens. My imagination has always been the part of me that my mom loved the most. Well, that and when I got good grades. It's a weird mix of love that she has for me. She loves my silly side, but she needs me to be smart. At some point in her life, she decided that she was only allowed to talk about important stuff: educational reform, generational wealth, the new misleading national health guidelines. She doesn't entertain foolishness. Her and Daddy-O debated everything. Integration is the worst thing that ever happened to black folks, Daddy-O said emphatically. You don't believe that, Will. You're just saying it to pluck my nerves, Mom said dismissively. Listen to me, Carolyn. Before integration, we had our own. Black businesses were thriving because niggas had my apologies, because niggas had to patronize niggas. The body, the cleaners, the restaurant, the hardware store, everybody needed everybody. As soon as black folks was allowed to eat at McDonald's, our entire economic infrastructure collapsed. So, are you suggesting that you'd prefer to be raising these children in slavery or in Jim Crow? Mom said. I'm suggesting that if there was a nigga water fountain, niggas would be getting hired to fix it. Mom would never say it to Daddy-O, but she would repeat all the time, never argue with a fool. Because from a distance, people can't tell who's who. So when she would stop arguing with you, you knew what she thought of your position. When I say silly stuff, it makes the world lighter for her. But she needs me to say smart stuff too. That makes her feel safe. She thinks that the only way I'll be able to survive is if I'm intelligent. She likes about 60-40 ratio of smart to silly. She's the best audience I've ever had. It's like there's some hidden part of her that even she's not aware of that's always egging me on. Come on, Will. Sillier, smarter. Sillier, smarter. I like to hit her with stuff that on the surface is super silly, and I hide the smart under it to see if she can find it. I like the look on her face when she thinks something is just stupid, and then the smart part sneaks up on her. That's my favorite too. Comedy is an extension of intelligence. It's hard to be really funny if you're not really smart. And laughter is my mom's medicine. In a way, I'm her little doctor. The more she laughs, the more silly, smart, spectacular shit I make up. As a child, I would disappear into my imagination. I could daydream endlessly. There was nothing more entertaining to me than my fantasy worlds. There was a jazz band at my camp. I heard the trumpets. I saw the trombone, the zoot suits, the big dance scene. The worlds that my mind created and inhabited were as real to me as real life, sometimes even more so. This constant stream of images and colors and ideas and silliness became my safe space. And then to be able to share that space, to be able to transport someone, became the ultimate bliss. I love the ecstasy of a person's rapt attention, taking them on a roller coaster ride of their emotions locked in harmony with my fantasy creation. For me, the border between fantasy and reality has always been thin and transparent, and I've been able to step in and out of those effortlessly. The problem is one man's fantasy is another man's lie. I developed a reputation in the neighborhood as compulsive liar. My friends felt like they could never trust what I said. This is a strange quirk about me, and even continues to this day. It's a running joke among my friends and family that you have to dial back my stories 2 or 3 notches to know what actually happened. Sometimes I'll tell a story and then a friend will look at Jada and say, okay, so what really happened? But as a child, what the other kids didn't understand was that I didn't lie about my perceptions. My perceptions lied to me. I would get lost sometimes. I would lose track of what was real and what I had made up. It became a defense mechanism. My mind wouldn't even contemplate what was true. I would think, what do they need to hear to be okay? But my mom got me. She delighted in my peculiar. Ooh, I pronounced that horribly. Peculiarities. She made space for me to be as silly and creative as I could be. For instance, for much of my childhood, I had an imaginary friend named Magicer. A lot of kids go through the imaginary friend phase, usually between 4 and 6 years old. Those imaginary friends are amorphous identities that don't really have any shape or personality. The imaginary friend wants whatever the child wants, hates what the child hates, and so on. It's made up to affirm the child's thoughts and feelings. But Magicer was different. Even as I write this book, the memory of Magicer is as vivid and resonant as any of the actual experiences of my childhood. He was a full blown person. Magicer was a little white boy with red hair, fair skin, and freckles. He always wore a little powder blue polyester suit with a fire engine red bow tie. His pants rode just a little bit too high, exposing poorly chosen white socks. Whereas most other children's imaginary friends served as projections and affirmations, Magicer had distinct preferences and opinions about what games we should play and where we should go and what we should do. Sometimes he would disagree with me. Other times he'd make me go outside when I didn't want to. He had strong ideas about certain types of foods and the character of people in my life. Even as I'm sitting here recalling our relationship, I'm thinking, damn it, Magicer, this is my imagination. Magicer was such a significant presence in my childhood that my mom would sometimes set out a separate plate for him at the dinner table. And if she wasn't making any headway with me, she talked to Magicer instead. Okay, Magicer, are you ready to go to bed? Fortunately, this was the one thing that Magicer and I always agreed on. We were never ready to go to bed. A side effect of being lost in a fantasy life was that I had a lot of eccentric ideas about what was fly, fashionable, or funny. For example, I'm not sure how it developed, but I stumbled into an unfortunate but passionate cowboy boot phase. Man, I love cowboy boots. In fact, I refuse to wear anything else on my feet. I'd wear them with sweatsuits. I'd wear them with jeans. Hell, I even wore them with shorts. Now, a black kid in West Philly in cowboy boots might as well just put a bullseye on his back. Kids would make fun of me and tease me mercilessly. But I didn't understand why. These boots are dope. And the more they laughed, the deeper my commitment to cowboy boots grew. I was also a bit of an oddball. Things that felt normal to me could seem strange to others. And things that other people celebrated sometimes didn't inspire me in the least. Back in the day, Huffy mountain bikes were on fire. Every kid wanted one. And one Christmas, all of my friends on the block got together and we agreed to ask our parents for Huffy bikes that year. The plan was we would all ride our matching bikes to Marion Park, a small park just far enough outside of our neighborhood to feel like we were on an adventure. Well, Christmas came and Santa made good on 10 brand new matching Huffies. Noon rolled around and everybody was out front. Everybody, that is, except me. See, I didn't ask for a Huffy. Huffies were for suckers. And they were about to witness what a real bike looked like. Because while they had all asked for stock, standard, run of the mill, Huffy mountain bikes, I ain't no sheep. I had asked for a bright red relay chopper. Choppers were those low rider bikes with a big wheel in the back and a tiny one up front, with the handlebars that stuck way in the air, with the 3-speed gear shift and an L bucket dragster saddle, aka the banana seat. They were like the Harley Davidsons of kids' bikes. You felt like you were on a motorcycle on that thing. It was the undisputed coolest bike on earth. I couldn't sleep the night before imagining my entrance. I had worked out my big reveal. I would wait for everybody to line up out front ready to go, but I would come out from the back driveway, maintaining the element of surprise. I even planned and practiced what I was going to say when they saw me on my chopper. What up, suckers? What y'all waiting for? Let's go. And then I just ride past them so they would have to catch up with me. Will Smith, the leader of the pack, the king of the neighborhood. The moment arrived. I had been watching them from behind the curtains in my living room. I could tell they were all waiting and wondering, where's Will at? And just then I rolled out from the driveway, handlebars scraping the heavens, pedaling smoothly in my cowboy boots. That relay chopper first gear was butter. I was the man. I float on by, all eyes on me. I throw the nod, then hit them with the line. What up, suckers? What y'all waiting for? Let's go. It was quiet for a few seconds. I figured I had them shook. Then I was nearly knocked off my chopper by the roar of laughter that emerged behind me. Teddy Allison literally laid on the ground laughing. Through his tears, he managed to say, "What the fuck is that, John?" What are those? I hit the brakes and turned to scan the rest of the crowd to see if Teddy was just bussing or if he was speaking for everybody. "Nigga, are you in a biker gang?" said Danny Brennan. "You can't even see over them handlebars." Michael Barr said quietly, "This what happens when you go to white schools." But it didn't even matter what they thought, because to me, I was hot. That's one of the things about having an overactive imagination. I could make my mind believe anything. I was able to cultivate an almost delusional level of confidence. And while this somewhat skewed perception of myself would often end in ridicule and getting my ass kicked when I was young, on many occasions throughout my life it served as my superpower. When you are unaware that you shouldn't be able to do something, then you just do it. When my parents told me I couldn't be a rapper because there were no careers in hip hop, it didn't deter me, because I knew parents just don't understand. When television producers asked me if I could act, I said of course, even though I had never acted a day in my life. I thought, how hard can it be? When movie studios said they couldn't cast me because African American leads don't sell to international audiences, I wasn't necessarily offended. I just couldn't understand how a motherfucker that wrong could have this job. Oh my gosh, that's right, Will. Let him know. Let him know. It wasn't just the racism that bothered me. It was the stupidity. People would tell me how I was supposed to be, and it just didn't make any sense. I felt like their rules didn't apply to me. Yo, come on, Will. Come on. We the same in a sense, cause like I'll be feeling like that too. Let me take a sip before I hit on this next paragraph. I feel you, Will. Living in your own little world with your own rules can be an advantage sometimes, but you have to be careful. You can't get too detached from reality because there are consequences. My consciousness was an infinite playground that I delighted in exploring. But when I was a kid, the benefits of my fantastical delusions were still far off in the future, and the consequences were front and center. Tolerance and open mindedness weren't the most common schoolyard virtues in West Philly. Kids could be cruel. And the more eccentric you are, the less mercy you will be shown. The playground is a hunting ground where every little boy is testing the limits of his own budding masculinity, attempting to prove himself as stronger and dominant, constantly flexing and challenging other boys, measuring himself against them, and punishing those weaker than himself. I was skinny and profoundly unathletic. My limbs and my torso had a sadly dysfunctional relationship. In addition, I had an overactive imagination, and from what the other kids could tell, I lied incessantly. All this meant that I was singled out by other boys as an easy and justifiable target on which to prove their dominance. I got pushed around, picked last for games, hit and spit on. You name it, I got it. One day when I was probably 12 or 13 years old, a bunch of us were playing basketball in the schoolyard. I was fresh to death in my bright green shorts and my favorite cowboy boots. In my mind, I was Magic Johnson, but on the actual court, I was more like a figure skater. Cowboy boots don't necessarily provide the requisite grip or ankle support you might otherwise find in a standard basketball shoe. Basically, I was stumbling all over the place. At some point, the universal basketball bragging began. Everybody trying to demonstrate how they could replicate the moves of their favorite players. One guy shouted out, "Kareem!" as he slung up a sky hook. Another screamed out, "Bird!" throwing up a three. But this was Philadelphia in the early 80s. How dare they disrespect these Philly streets? There's only one name to yell out on these courts: Dr. J. Julius Irving. So I said, "Watch out, here comes the doc. Move, y'all, I'm about to dunk." Matt Brown busts out laughing. "Nigga, you can't dunk." Granted, I had never dunked before, but as soon as I said it, I believed it. As I made my way back to half court, I licked my fingers and wiped the bottom of my cowboy boots for traction. As I prepared to take a running start, I swear to Almighty, I had no doubt I was about to dunk this ball. As I stretched my shoulder to prepare a full extension, the guy started throwing out bets. "I bet you $3 you can't do it, Will." "Bet," I clapped back. "Get my money ready." "I'm in for 5, somebody said. "I'll take all y'all money. Bring it." And I'm agreeing to all of them because in my mind, this ball is already dunked. The guys all fan out. There's a moment of anticipation. I steady myself as the murmuring settles, and then boom, I take off running down the court. I'm seeing the Julius Irving rocking the baby cradle dunk in the 1983 final sweep against the Lakers. Cowboy boots clomping, feet failing. I hit my stride. About to take off, I'm up, I'm flying, the cameras are flashing, the crowd is going crazy, and then silence. And somehow I'm falling backward. Something has gone wrong. Slam! Reality hits with the force of paved asphalt. I am not Julius Irving. I'm out cold. The bigger the fantasy you live, the more painful the inevitable collision with reality. If you cultivate the fantasy that your marriage will be forever joyful and effortless, then reality is going to pay you back in equal proportion to your delusion. If you live the fantasy that making money will earn you love, then the universe will slap you awake in the tune of 1,000 angry voices. And if you think you can dunk like Julius Irving in cowboy boots, then the gravitational reality will invoke a painful and divinely perfect retribution. Let's rewind and see what actually happened. I had clumped my way from half court. All was still going well as I accelerated past the foul line. I took my last dribble, lift off was smooth, not perfect, but I was airborne. As I ascended, I got just high enough to hit the rim with the ball, completely halting my forward momentum, thereby causing my legs to fly out from under me. The slang terminology for this particular sporting mishap is hanging yourself on the rim. As I think back, the added weight of the cowboy boots may have exacerbated the torque. I came down hard, directly on the back of my head and neck, knocking myself unconscious. When I wake up, my friend Omar is standing over me. I can see the strobing lights of an ambulance. There's blood in my hair, and I have no idea where my left cowboy boot is. I can hear Omar's voice. He's awake! He's awake! Omar is my oldest friend. Well, except for Stacy Brooks. When he was little, he was so pigeon-toed that he'd be tripping himself and falling and scuffing himself all the time when we were playing. His parents decided that he should have corrective surgery when he was 5. The doctors broke both of his legs and reset them. Omar had lead braces all summer, but when it was time to go to school, all of a sudden he was the fastest kid on the block and the best dancer. It made us all want the magical surgery. As my vision slowly sharpens, Omar's face slips into focus. I can see in his eyes that my fall must have been pretty bad. He isn't laughing. He's scared. Yo, man, you alright? I do a quick inventory. I can move my hands, my arms, my legs, my feet, nothing broken. I muster an affirmative nod. As they strap me to the stretcher and slide me into the ambulance, I catch a final glimpse of Omar. Yo, oh, I went in, right? It went in, right? Yo, oh, went in, right? Oh, no, baby. No, boo boo, it didn't. Did it? Make believe is a normal part of psychological development. But as we grow up, we start to let go of our fantasy life simply because we discover that living in the real world is more valuable to us than clinging to our fantasies. We have to learn how to deal with others, how to succeed at school and at work, how to survive in the material world. And it's hard to do that if you're unable to perceive reality accurately. As such, we all have to learn to make a distinction between what is real and what is not. In fact, some people make the distinction so well that as adults, they unfortunately lose the ability to embrace anything other than concrete material reality. But for some reason, I didn't go through this process. Or perhaps I refused to go through this process. That's because my fantasy life is what protected me from the world. Offer the choice between the infinite playground of my imagination and a reality filled with constant threat. My mind chose fantasy. We all delude ourselves a little bit around the things that scare us. We're afraid of not being accepted by people at work, or at school, or on Twitter. So we conceive ourselves that they're stuck up or ignorant or cruel. We concoct entire narratives about other people's lives when in fact we have no clue what they're thinking or feeling or struggling with. We invent these stories to protect ourselves. We imagine all sorts of things to be true about ourselves or the world, not because we've seen evidence of it, but because it's the only thing that keeps us from collapsing back into fear. Sometimes we'd rather blindfold ourselves than take a cold hard look at the world exactly as it is. The problem is delusion works like poisoned honey. It tastes sweet in the beginning, but ultimately ends in sickness and misery. The stories we tell ourselves, which are designed for our protection, are the same stories that create the walls that prevent the very connections we so desperately crave. I told myself that I had a friend named Magicker because it made me feel less alone. But that fantasy was also a part of why I disconnected from the other kids in the neighborhood. Later in my life, I would invent the fantasy that becoming rich and famous would solve all of the other problems in my life. But the pursuit and maintenance of that fantasy only drove the people I loved further away from me. As a child, I told myself that if I kept Daddy-O entertained and made him laugh, then he wouldn't hurt my mother. But that fantasy only caused me to feel like a coward, an unworthy son, despite the fact that none of it was my fault. My fantasy life, while in some ways protecting me, also caused me to feel more guilt and shame and more self loathing. All fantasies eventually fail. No matter how hard you fight, the truth is undefeated. Reality remains the undisputed champ. I was just telling somebody this the other day on Facebook because this person was, telling me all their opinions that were based on no facts. And I told this person, if everyone just lived in reality, the world would be a much easier place for everyone. Anyways, the story continues as Daddy-O only took one summer vacation in my entire childhood. When your family sells ice, you are trapped at work from the first week of June when you get out of school to just after Labor Day when you go back. But in the summer of 1976, Daddy-O decided to take off for 2 months. Rent a camper and drive the family cross country. There was a family reunion from Gigi's side in Los Angeles. We took the northern route out to LA and the southern route back to Philly. I have seen every nook and cranny of the United States of America. We left Philly and headed west to Pittsburgh to see my mom's childhood home. Her father, we call him Pap Pap, still lived there. He seemed like a really old version of Daddy-O. Legend had it that Pap Pap would get so angry sometimes that his nose would bleed. And that could be just watching the Steelers. Next stop, Cleveland, to see my Aunt Tootie and Uncle Walt. Then Chicago to the Great Lakes. Then on to Minneapolis and the Dakotas. We saw prairie dogs, and I don't know why they call them that. They look like tall hamsters that stand upright. Think Timon from The Lion King. Harry got a handmade drum from a Sioux tribal leader in South Dakota. He banged that thing all the way through Mount Rushmore, the Devil's Tower, and into Yellowstone National Park. We saw Old Faithful. I couldn't believe they could tell you down to the second exactly when it was going to erupt. The ranger would point and then, abracadabra, huge jets of boiling water shooting up out of the ground. The smell was nasty. Daddy said it was sulfur. I was glad to find out because for a second I thought it was Ellen. Oh shit. My mom woke us up at sunrise on the top of a mountain in Wyoming. We were above the clouds. This is what heaven must feel like. But then we got stuck for an hour because a black bear walked out into the middle of the road and headed straight for our camper. It was a park rule that you had to turn off your vehicle if there was a bear within 50 feet of you. Daddy-O slammed the window closed with both hands. It's the only memory I have of him ever being scared of anything. Daddy-O seen that bear and all that toughness went right out the fucking window. Okay. That's funny. Ooh. After after about 2 weeks, Daddy started commenting that this was the longest period in his life that he'd gone without seeing any black people. Apart from us, of course, we're black. Daddy was suffering from Negro Withdrawal Syndrome, or NWS. But one day, at a rest stop in Wyoming, we saw a black couple driving away. And he chased them and pulled them over just to shake their hand and say hi. They thought it was very funny. Daddy-O drove all day to the craters of the Moon National Monument in Idaho. It looks just like the moon, and you actually feel like you're on it. He was exhausted, but Mom didn't want to be on the moon. She didn't feel comfortable there, so we never checked into the motel, and Mom drove us to the South Lake City. When Daddy-O woke up, he took us out into the Great Salt Lake. He explained how buoyancy works in salt water versus the fresh water. Buoyancy. I said buoyancy. How buoyancy works in salt water versus the fresh water of the Great Lakes. He showed us how easy it is to float. He made ice, so he knew everything about water. But the most incredible thing I'd ever seen in my young life was the Grand Canyon. This entire canyon was carved by water, Mom said. I was in total awe, but I was too scared to approach the edge. I remember Peter Brady on the Brady Bunch also being amazed about how water could possibly make this canyon. Wow, he said. No wonder you don't like us to leave the water faucets dripping. And just when I thought the day couldn't get any better, Harry accidentally dropped his drum into the canyon. It seemed like it fell for about 3 days. I was so sick of hearing him banging that thing, it felt like the heavens had answered my prayers. This trip expanded and detonated my imagination. Every person we came across seemed like a new and fascinating character. Every destination was a dreamland, and I felt like life was just waiting for me to make up the story. The American landscape was so diverse. Beautiful. There were mountains and prairies and valleys and whitewater rivers and regular deserts and painted deserts and green forests and petrified forests and corn into infinity and sequoias or redwoods, whichever ones we saw touching the sky, which was filled with sun sometimes and tornadoes in the distance, and funny clouds and scary clouds, and all the clouds in between. There were the best 8 weeks of my childhood. Everybody was happy. We were the perfect family. About a block away from Woodcrest, at the end of Graham Street, there was a known sex offender. All of the kids in the neighborhood knew about him, and our parents told us to never go anywhere near his house. We rarely saw him. He was like a ghost or an urban legend. One day I saw a little girl going up the front steps to his house. He was standing in the open doorway inviting her in. My heart started pounding in my chest. I thought about calling out to her, but I froze. She was too far away and I could see him. I was terrified. I ran home, up the steps to my bedroom, and slammed the door. Nobody was supposed to go into that house. That was the bad man's house. Did he see me? Is he coming to get me? Needing to get as far away as possible, I hid in the closet, shaking. I could feel Magicker with me. You have to tell an adult, Will. But I can't. What if the man found out it was me? What if he tries to hurt me for telling on him? Will, go tell your parents right now. I can't. Will, go right now. But all I could do was curl up on the floor of the closet and cry. Will, get up. You have to tell your parents. Magicker was angry now. He never got angry. You have to tell someone. You have to get up now. I closed my eyes and buried my head in my hands. I can't. Just like I couldn't face my father. Just like I couldn't face the neighborhood bullies. I couldn't even tell someone that somebody else was potentially being hurt. What was wrong with me? Why was I always so afraid? Why was I such a coward? I just laid there trembling, ashamed. Weak. Moments passed. I took my hands away from my eyes. Magicker was gone. There's a moment when your fantasies recede and you realize that you are still you. Imaginary friends or dunking basketballs won't make the fear go away. They may help you forget for a moment, but reality remains undefeated. Fortunately, someone else had seen the girl enter the house and had intervened. But what if they hadn't? I never saw Magicker again. Damn. 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 That shit is deep. Like, I want to keep reading. I don't want to stop. I'm gonna go live again tomorrow. I'm probably gonna go live earlier tomorrow because yeah, I want to read more. I want to read more. So that's how he lost his imaginary friend. That was how he lost his imaginary friend. Wow. I feel so sad for Will. Like, damn, Will. Damn, I would have never guessed this was his life at all. None of it. Like, I knew pieces from like interviews, but like looking at the grand picture of it, I would have never guessed. But hey, I mean, I'm sure if I told you my story, you would never guess, you know? So, you know. But damn, I'm excited to read more. This is a good read. Very good read. But look, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and I will catch you guys on the next video tomorrow. I will probably go live. Let's just stick with like 7, 8 o'clock because it seems like, you know, sometimes I'll be playing a game, sometimes I'll be doing this, I'll be doing a little bit of that. And you know, let's just stick with 7 to 8 o'clock tomorrow. Thank you for your time. Bye.